Hello, this is exciting. So it is 9 p.m. here in Saigon, and I'm about to do my first double live. Hello. I've got to work out how to actually add Sarah. This is my first time I've ever done it. So go live with Sarah. Oh my goodness, I'm so excited. I think I might actually be about to meet you. So today's, I think I've just...
Hi!
There you are! Oh my goodness, this is so exciting.
I'm so excited to be your first Instagram Live. I'm very honored.
It's it's like my first international one as well, because we're obviously like miles and miles apart. I'm going to embarrass myself and just do that. I really love what you do. It's so exciting.
Thank you. That's not embarrassing yourself. I love what I do too.
It's a really great feeling, isn't it? Hello, Lou. My friend Lou has just joined, and she's really passionate about this as well. So this is wonderful. Awesome. So I have a few questions that I wanted to ask you. So for anybody watching, I'm a parenting and leadership mentor, and I support parents in my one-to-one practice. I support parents who are struggling with a disconnected household. So that might be lots and lots of fights. It might be lots of arguments. It might be, coming in, putting your key in the door, and just going, what am I going to have today? And it's good people. It's good people who love their children so much, and be they young ones or old ones or teens or almost even adults, and they're just struggling to get out of devices, to get talking to each other, and to stop every conflict exploding into a big bust-up. And so, of course, I follow these things on Instagram that support, that help me in this, and one of these people is the lovely Sarah. And there was something that at Christmas time, it won't surprise you to know that as somebody who works with families, I have a huge upsurge in people contacting me. And the biggest thing is, what do I do when my grandparents, or my kid's grandparents, so my parents or my partner's parents, they want a hug and they want a kiss. And especially right now, because a lot of people are in these restricted movement times. And, when we see people, it is precious. And I think everyone has this pressure right now where if you see someone, you want to hug them. And, of course, people want to hug our children. Why? Because we love them. Yeah. And they love them. And our kids might not want it. Or they might be afraid because they've been told for a whole year, don't hug people, don't hug people. You might make your grandparents ill. Or even just they're not in a place because they've had reduced social contact for so long. And even before that, sometimes they just don't want to hug.
Yeah.
And I just saw these direct connections between what I do and what you do. So I was wondering, would you mind sharing? Consent is something that we often think about as a scary adults interacting thing, and you talk about it in relation to parenting, and I think a lot of people go, exact face. I might have stolen that from a reel. So please share.
That is I've been told I have an expressive face. Yes, that is totally, that's a very familiar experience of parents kind of pausing when they hear that I teach consent in parenting and consent for kids, because typically consent is this scary thing that you have to make sure to get for legal purposes, for safety, so you're not committing sexual assault. And you're like, whoa, what does this have to do with me and my child? And the truth is that consent is, I will say it again and again, consent is not about sex. Consent is about body autonomy. Yeah, it's about body autonomy, and it's about believing, and it's about empathy, and like believing that what someone else wants and says they want is true.
It's so interesting because I call that respecting the sanctity of the psychological self. I teach school leaders how to do this with their team and with their students, the sanctity of the psychological selves, that we're all like little golden balls of psychological selves who have our autonomy. And especially when we're younger, it's so easy through fear and love and wanting the best for somebody to take that away, I suppose effectively to violate that sanctity of their self. In the mistaken misconception, we're doing what they need, like it's good for them. I'm just taking control for this moment, sweetie pie, just so that you can have the best future. And of course, it doesn't feel like that to our children.
Yeah. I mean, I think about how you would feel, like an adult would feel if someone came up to you and was like, I know what you need. You'd be like, excuse me? No, you don't. Like, and so it is true that parents have knowledge that kids don't have, and that parents have a big picture understanding that kids just aren't capable of. And that's important. The trick is not to then kind of take what you do know and use that as reason to assume that you know everything, kind of. Like, you do know their body needs food to function. Do you really know, like, how much food they need based on what they ate at school and what they ate for breakfast when you weren't home, but your partner fed them? And, like, they know their body. They have natural hunger cues. Or they know what kind of touch they want. If they're not in the mood, maybe they're upset at someone, so they don't want to hug. There are so many reasons. There are so many, like, very sensory and physical things that kids do know about their bodies that sometimes parents want to interject and say, no, I know what's best for your body. But they do have...
And sometimes the children can't actually communicate that.
Yeah.
And that's the hard thing for us, to trust them and to give them the space. I also talk about giving them, children and young people, the space to grow into their authentic selves, which sounds like a huge mouthful, and it is in a way, but it's just that, you know, they are these people, like, we don't own them. I mean, they came from us, you know, even if you adopted them, you know, they came into your family, we brought them into us, and we feel this sense of, I don't know whether it is ownership, but huge, sometimes crushing, I say this as a parent of 3, responsibility to do the best for them. And, you know, we say, oh, that's my kid, that's my child over there. But, and yes, they are, but we are like the stewards over their lives. So we need to find this way where, you know, we're stepping back or interjecting. And, yeah, I think the consent, if that is always in our mind, am I respecting the psychological self in front of me? Am I giving you space to make your decision? Even though sometimes we know that they're about to do something that's going to blow up. Sometimes we have to let them do that.
I could listen to you talk all day. I love the way you frame all of this. Yes to all of
the
this.
Accent.
And
I'm going to be honest, I
it might be. It might be. I don't think it is, though. I think it's things like, yeah, you are a steward for your child, and sometimes you do have to let them make mistakes in order to learn.
Some of my best things came from mistakes.
That's where all learning happens.
Yeah, that's true.
It's where all learning happens. I really believe that. And you just want to make sure that the mistakes you're thoughtful about what kind of mistakes they're making.
Yeah. And then they can come to us.
Mm-hmm.
Even if, you know, that they're not just going to get, and I told you so. You know, it's like that thing of you want so my eldest is 6. And I really want her one day, it makes me feel ill thinking about it, but I want her to ring me at 3 in the morning and be like, okay, I've messed up, come get me. And that starts now, when she's 6, when she spills some milk on the table, and I don't flip out. And of course, I don't always manage to be my best self, but we try. We know we keep trying, and we don't have to be perfect all the time.
Yes, I don't want to be in a relationship of any kind with someone who's perfect. That sounds horrible. I don't want my parent to be perfect. I don't want my friend to be perfect, because then where does that leave space for me? And so it is also important that parents make mistakes, and then, you know, if they hug without asking, that they say, and, you know, the kid's kind of squirming, that they say, oh, I forgot to ask. Do you want some space? And that's totally okay. That's amazing. Now you've just modeled for them what to do when you have a mind blip and you do something without asking, because you will make mistakes.
I teach in my parenting work, I teach the pause, you know, the magic of you know, so that something happens and, you know, we have the choice whether we react or we respond. And of course our knee jerk is to react. and the reaction is very rarely the positive way to go forward. So to model the, okay, I'm feeling a bit frustrated, need a moment. And the amazing thing is that after, I mean, a year, at least a year of me doing this consistently every time at sometimes great mental cost to myself, me having to do some real self-care so that I can do this, my 4-year-old is now doing it when my 2-year-old pokes him in the ear or, you know, takes his toy, that he will actually finally go, ooh.
That's incredible.
I actually nearly cried the first time, but it took a year of me doing it constantly, non-stop. And of course, I didn't always manage it, but when I didn't, I could go, okay, there's something going on for Mummy. This isn't your fault. You know, Mummy's responsible for her feelings.
Right.
And then we move forward. So you're right, modeling is, well, it's the only way. I once did something, a post on my Facebook page, and it was, what did the old school parents say to you that, you know, we've moved away from? And there were so many, it was insane. The main one was, I have to say this right, do as I say, not as I do.
Yes.
That's like the most pointless thing that anybody's ever said.
Yes. Yes.
Because it doesn't make any sense.
And that's not how our brains work. So
yeah, exactly.
Sorry. Can't do that.
Could I ask you, since I was saying like, the biggest thing at Christmas, and it comes up, it's not just Christmas, that's obviously the, you know, Christmas, Eve, whatever, any big event, and we've just had Lunar New Year here in Vietnam, like Tet holiday, and I almost hesitate to say this, but we can actually see people here in Vietnam. Like, we all wear masks, but we can go to each other's houses, and, you know, we still have to have some safety measures, but we basically all just, we're really lucky, you know, we go out. And it means that Tet is a big time of families meeting together. So again, all my Vietnamese friends have been going, okay, what do I do when, you know, granny, great auntie, I mean, sometimes it's like 70 people events. It's not been this year, but they're huge. And they all just, all over the children. So could you, I know we just talked a bit about the theory and about the mindset, would you be able to give the parents watching some actual things that they can say, that they can do? So say the grandparent is swooping in and the kid is doing the thing.
Yeah.
What do we do? Because a lot of us actually haven't been shown this, and it's really hard to do it. Either to do it full stop, to advocate for our kids, and especially for the people who didn't advocate for us, or to do it without being aggressive. And I've definitely made that mistake of like basically telling my mum to back off. Yeah. And then had to apologize, but you know, we learn. So
the first thing I will say is talk to them before you get there. Because it's just like you're not like, to introduce deep breathing to your child who's having a tantrum, like in the moment, you can remind them if you've already done deep breathing a lot outside the moment, but in the moment when you're right in front of them, it's very visceral, and it's kind of like your defenses go up, or the grandparents' defenses go up. So if you warn them ahead of time, hey, we're practicing consent in our home, and if they have questions about it, you can talk through why it's important, or where you learned it, or what questions they have, all of that. And then just say, so when we get to auntie whatever's house, it's really important to me that you ask before giving them a hug, see if they maybe want a hug, maybe they want a kiss, maybe just a fist bump. Do you have any questions about that? And kind of working out the details before the kid is involved, so they don't need to like be a witness to this tension and feel like they're causing, auntie and mom.
Then they end up with so if I say no, auntie whatever her name is going to get upset.
Right.
So maybe I should just do it anyway. And actually that's of course not the opposite of what we want.
Right. Or I'll just say yes so they stop fighting. We'll get this over with. I'll say I want to. Mm-hmm. Exactly. So that's step number. That's like crossing bridge. That's how you cross bridge number 1, and definitely the most important bridge. If they have buy-in, everything else becomes easier, because then it's just like reminders.
Yeah.
kind of,
Like,
or
this is
like,
strange, but we'll
yeah.
find our way.
And you can also, if they're like bought into the idea and they're like, oh, this is brilliant. Why didn't I have this growing up? I love this. You can also make a game out of it and have them like model it. Like a lot of parents do that with their own kids, but you can also kind of coach them through doing it with auntie. And kids actually are, they'll warm up when they feel like they have the autonomy and they know they're allowed to say no. Another thing you can do is delay. Delay is like a really big one because sometimes you don't want to hug like right in the moment. But once you hang out with them and like you remember that, like I have my nieces and nephews, none of them live near me. I have 7 nieces and nephews. I have 3 in California and 4 in Israel. And so when the young ones were really young, they sometimes didn't remember me from visit to visit. And so if I came in hot with a hug, that can be like overwhelming. But if I come in and start playing with them and then they start to like me, by the end, they're giving me a hug goodbye because they've had that time to build the relationship.
They will have some memories and you will be special to them, but are they comfortable giving you a huge hug? Even though, of course, we would love that. My niece and nephew are the same. They live far away.
And I also and that's also a reminder of, do you want them giving you a hug if they don't want to hug you?
Yeah,
and
I know.
When people hear that question, they're like, oh, I guess not. You know, and so
sometimes
it helps.
I think people do things because it's the thing that you do. You know, the unexamined social etiquette.
Yep, the social norms, yeah.
Yeah.
Like, how are you? And you're like, I have to say fine, even though I've had the hardest month ever.
Yeah.
You're like, I'm fine.
I'm gonna go cry into my tea.
Yeah.
Yep.
So those are, I don't know how many those were, but those were a few.
Four. It was amazing. Yeah,
Great.
These are amazing starters. So I also, because I remember this whole thing was sparked by you posting something about the grandparent hugs. Probably another brilliant reel. Love them. I can't wait till we get reels here in Vietnam. It's not been rolled out, and I'm just like,
yeah, I can already tell
like
from your energy you're gonna be great at that.
I'm so desperate. So, yeah, I also wanted to talk about, I mean, you just said about the buy-ins. Like, if they buy in, this is great, because we had actually similar things, and where I totally went wrong was not prompting before. I think I just didn't think about it, and then, you know, they were going, and they wanted a hug, and it was not well managed. We learned lessons that day.
Mm-hmm.
And, yeah, but sometimes, this is what other parents have been saying when I did like a little poll, that one of the problems is that they get angry, so the grandparents, the aunties, because, so this is what I wanted to talk about, is that, so what I work with my one-to-one clients is, we talk about triggers. So I do a lot of my work with cycle breakers, so people who, and it's not necessarily completely chaotic homes, you know, people who didn't get the best start, who didn't have respect and consent and emotionally mature adults modeling them growing up. So they then get to this point where a lot of people go like, oh, I'm fine, you know, I got over that, you know, I went to, you know, I got a degree, or, you know, I got this really good job, and then, you know, I met someone, we got married, we bought the house, and I'm fine, and then they have kids. And, you know, the wonderful Dr. Shafali, she calls our children the awakeners, and oh goodness, they are. They really show us that in some cases we weren't okay. And
they're mirrors of ourselves. I've heard that phrase also. Yeah.
Yeah, and I know, so I have 3, and the one that I clash with the most, it's just, we do just clash, it's because he's just like me. He's exactly like me. And we're also really close, so, you know, we have to work a little bit harder, which is part of the fun, I guess. So, yeah, I was talking about why it is that they get angry, and also for us, because it's really the same thing going on, for us as parents, you know, when I go and hug my child, and we home educate our kids, we world school, so we travel the world, we learn as we go, we are together a lot, and most of the time, You know, we're hugging, we're kissing, we're just playing, we're doing whatever. And sometimes, like, they just don't want it. And I feel horrible. And I can't really deny it. So some of what I do with clients is we talk about identifying what is going on and accepting it. And so this is the same thing as the grandparents, is that they're upset because they love these children. And one of the ways that they know to show love is a hug and a kiss. I mean, if you ask most people, how do you show love, they don't say, you back off and give space. Although, of course, they probably should. And so I've been thinking about when my children, so if I want to give them a hug at bedtime or something, and they're doing that, you know, you said it so well, this squirmy thing where they don't want it. And we have to accept it. But in order to do that, it's not quite easy. I mean, in the moment, we can change our outward behavior. But in order for us to be there and to be able to say, okay, you don't want to hug me right now, that's okay.
Yeah.
So part of my message that I wanted to get across about discussing this is, and we could share this with grandparents and things, say, you know, sometimes they don't want to hug me, and it makes me feel a bit rubbish. And I know that it might feel a bit like it's them saying, I'm rejecting you, and they're not rejecting you. They're just saying, right now, for a million reasons that we're not aware of, and they're possibly not aware of, they don't want to hug. And we can always, so sometimes I go away and I journal about it. I'm ridiculously big on my journaling because it just gets everything out. And you can say, today I felt, you know, a bit rubbish because I tried to hug my eldest and she didn't want it, and I'm not sure why. And sometimes there is a reason. Sometimes it's just not. But having got it out or speaking to somebody about it, or I have a screamer, bless him, and he just is he's got lots of sensitive sensory issues, and he gets full, and he explodes. Yep. And this is fine, and you know, we're growing and we're learning as we go. A lot of people who also contact me have SEN children, special needs children, who have similar things, and are thus less predictable.
Yeah.
And I sometimes have to go, and it feels like a rejection. It's the same when they shout at you, or when they, you know, they throw things, or they're angry. That it feels like a rejection, and that's okay, but it hurts. So I guess that's the point that I wanted to say. It's okay when they don't want to hug to not be okay with it internally.
Yes.
We do need to train ourselves to externally do, and this is where scripting, you know, you just said plan before. I never thought of that. But this is crazy. Why did I never think of it? So obvious.
Yeah. And that helps them.
Scripting comes in. What will I say when they say no? I will say, I respect you. Okay, I'm hearing what you're saying, and I'm really proud of you for saying it out loud.
Mm-hmm.
How about we, or would you like to play a game, or just moving on to something else? And then we go away privately, and we have a cry.
Spot on. I always talk about like the handle. I always talk about the handling the no comes in two steps. There's first, what do you say to the person? Because you don't want to say to them, oh, I'm so sad. Please give me a hug. I'm so sad. You don't want to say that.
Yes,
so having that scripted. Yeah. Exactly. So having that scripted, like, thank you for speaking up for yourself. Like that scripted something. And then, but that's not it, because your emotions are still valid. And those big emotions are important to like reconcile with. And so there is a part two, which is how do you deal, what is your coping method? What support systems do you have, be that journaling or a friend or crafting, you know, to bring you back to your body. Oh.
Exciting. I definitely do my going to the gym.
Sorry about that?
I definitely do my going to the gym.
Yeah, exactly. And that's part of also handling that rejection, because it is so valid to feel hurt from that, because it can bring up memories. It can bring up feelings of questions of, am I worthy? Am I lovable? Like deep core, what they call like in psychology, like core beliefs that you might be working with. And those are important to value. And I also like that because then you can think of ahead of time, like if you know what the child likes, if the child likes coloring. Sometimes when we talk about alternative hugs, we go from like, oh, instead of a hug, you can give a high five. Yeah. But also, instead of a hug, you can go color together. Or you can go play catch.
Connection.
Yeah. Right, exactly. And that's where it's like the alternative doesn't have to be touch. And in fact, if the alternative is a deeper kind of connection, then again, they're more likely to want to hug you goodbye at the end because it will be a genuine hug and not just that social norm.
Yeah, like you said, do we want the fake hug that is given through gritted teeth? Actually, that doesn't feel very nice. To get that isn't very nice. But to have somebody sit with you and colour in, and then to have a 7-year-old say, "Ooh, that's exciting." Yeah, to have a 7-year-old say, "I really enjoyed sitting with you." Isn't that worth so much more than the awkward hug?
I talk a lot about, so the framework that I use often to talk about consent is a who, what, where, when, and how model, which is
Going in the journal.
which is the idea that there are so many like components of any like physical interaction. So who is hugging you? Let's sit with the hug, right? What is the interaction? Is it a hug? Is it a kiss? Is it a high five? Is it a fist bump? When they get older, is it penetrative sex? Is it, oral sex, etc.? The where is where on the body is it? A kiss on the neck is much different than like a kiss on the forehead, right? My mom can give me a kiss on the forehead. My mom should not give me a kiss on the neck. No, thank you.
We don't want it.
Very not my jam. The when is when in terms of set and setting. So like, what is your mindset? Are you in a good mood? Are you feeling anxious? Are you nervous? Are you angry? And then actual physical setting. Are you at home? Are you at school? Are people around you? Is it dark? Is it light? All these things, when you think about, again, as they get older, the setting can make a huge difference. I think of like the kid. Sorry?
It all adds to safety, like safety in the body and
Yes.
also safety, psychological safety.
Mm-hmm. I think about like the kid who like is fine with their mom giving them a kiss at home, but not at school, not when they drop them off.
Yeah, and again, but that's one of those things where we as parents, that feels like a rejection. And I guess at some level it is, but it's not a rejection of your relationship, and it's not a rejection of your love. It's just I don't want this right now here because I'm not comfortable with it.
There's, I'm forgetting their name. There's someone who talks about it as declining an invitation.
Oh, that's nice.
And I really like that, right? It's not a rejection. It's like you invited me for a hug, and I said no. I'm not rejecting you. I'm just declining the invitation. I like that a lot.
So it's not the global rejection.
I'm declining coming to your house. And like, I think rejection is a fair word to use too, but for some people, the shift in language can help.
It does, yeah. I think the language is very important. I teach a method called Ho'oponopono. I don't know if you've ever heard of it. It's a Hawaiian prayer. It's a 4-part. So when we have things, so sometimes this is really important for the why do we get so triggered. This is what I work with. So why do we get so triggered sometimes by our kids' behavior? So if you grew up in a household where, say one child hit you, so a sibling hit you for reasons you didn't understand as a child, and it might turn out that they had some form of special educational needs and they were unable to stop, or that your parents were not emotionally mature enough, there's no fault necessarily here. They weren't able to deal with that, so they didn't deal with it because, 80s, 90s, that's part of the way it just was done. That they, the young person who then grows into the adult, who is now the parent, who I'm working with, it feels like they're not respected, so they grow up feeling like, I'm not worthy of love, I'm not worthy of safety. So then when their child or young person or another person in their life is rejecting them, declining the invitation, what it does is it triggers that, I'm not worthy of love. Yeah. I'm not worthy of love. They don't love me. They don't love me. And then, it does go further. And in some ways it could be, is this too far? But it's not. It triggers these deep-seated things. And we need to, I guess that's what you said about preparing. We need to prepare in advance. What am I going to do? Because if they say no, sometimes it does blindside us. This is where things like journaling and so Ho'oponopono is this Hawaiian prayer of release where you take when I work with clients, I would say, okay, write down every time that you have ever felt rejected, every time from your childhood or your early years, or even recently, where you have felt that somebody has not wanted your love or not looked after you. And then we do the prayer of release, which is, we would say, I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you, I love you. It's really beautiful. It comes up in many, many forms, and I'm just going to plug it. I did a video on it on my YouTube channel, which is linked in the bio, because it took me 40 minutes to explain it. So that is a really, really brief version.
Yeah.
And I mean, they use it in restorative justice in the traditional practices. It's just incredibly powerful. And so this is one of my ways of coping that I think would maybe help other people. So I write it down. I let myself feel like my 6-year-old didn't want to hug me. Like, I feel really bad about it. Okay, I'm allowed to feel bad. You said valid. These feelings are valid. I know where they come from. And then at a later time, I'll maybe in the bus, or I'll have some quiet time, and I'll go through and I'll think about it, and I'll go through the Ho'oponopono steps. And when they're done, I always visualize a dandelion, the seeds just floating away.
That's beautiful.
And I can just let go of the attachment to it, and it is really powerful. It really, really helps. So, yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah.
It's just been so brilliant learning. I think I've learned so much. I have like 3 pages of notes now. Thank you.
I've learned so much. I can't wait to check out the YouTube video.
Yeah, it's really powerful. It's one of those things where you can read about it and you can learn about it. But then when you do it and then you sit back and you just go, oh, how does that work? And I don't know. But I know it's been around for millennia, so it is powerful, and it's real, it's wonderful.
And then just the last piece of the framework, though, I want to make sure to go over how is in the who, what, where, when, how. How is like, how are you hugging them, or how are you kissing them? Is it a tight hug? Is it a loose hug? A wet kiss? A dry kiss?
True.
And the reason,
and that we don't think of.
It is right, and the reason I love that is you see so many reasons other than it being personal for why someone's saying no. And the second thing is it allows you to tune in and say, what don't I like about this?
Yes,
and now if I can change one of those elements, all of a sudden I'm okay with it.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh, that's so interesting. And also I guess if you're having this conversation with the children after, they have so much more power. This is helping them to grow into their authentic selves, because they know, okay, I have preferences. I am allowed preferences. And I can move forward in my relationships as I grow.
Absolutely.
And and saying what I like.
Yes, and
what I don't like.
And it's people say like, but I don't get it. I like that. People say put yourself in their shoes, and they're like, yeah, but I would want that. And it's like, yes, but like you like chocolate ice cream and they like vanilla, and that's okay.
Yeah.
Like you guys, we all have different preferences everywhere. Why should it be any different for touch? It's not. Yeah. It's not. It's just preferences. No one's right or wrong.
I love this. I'm so happy we're doing this. Yeah. So is there anything you'd like to say as an end note to, mums and dads and other supporting adults who are thinking, okay, how can I embody being a consent supporting adult for my children?
Yeah.
Other children who are in, teachers, they like being in loco parentis. When we have children at school, we are in the position of mom and dad, especially if they're younger.
Yeah, I think especially with advocating for your child, the biggest thing is remembering I statements. So when it's talking to family members, like, I need you to ask before you hug them. Not you need to ask, but I need you to ask.
A lot less threatening.
It's a lot less threatening, and it's practice in stating your needs while still advocating, and it's not going to get those defenses up. Right? Or I can't bring them over unless you respect their boundaries. Not you have to or else.
Yeah,
it's the way.
I won't, because we're having a power play game here.
Mm-hmm.
It's just not happening.
Right.
This is how it is.
Yeah, and advocating in that way I think is so important. And then other than that, just remembering that it is a practice, and messing up is such an important part. I can't stress it enough. If you try to be perfect in consent, you're doing it wrong. That's the only way you can do it wrong, is by trying to be perfect.
It changes, doesn't it? Like, they change, we change.
Yeah. Yeah. Do it.
Change.
Make mistakes and go through those mistakes so your child knows how to go through their mistakes too.
That's true. Yeah. It's a powerful modeling for
Yeah.
them.
Yeah.
Yes,
Other than that, I'm just so glad to have met you.
I know, me too. I'm so happy you were my first live. Yeah, I just wanted to end just on a note, which is something I tell all my parenting clients, well, anyone I talk to actually, that when you are in a family, we have power, and I think quite often we don't realize, because we get so bogged down with life and cleaning and tidying and like, oh, we have to do this, oh, we have to do this, you know, and like fitting everything in, that we forget that we as moms and dads and, you know, foster carers or whoever we are, we have power. And I call it, sounds a bit silly, but I'm just going with it. I call it stepping into your power. Mm-hmm. And you have a lot more power. You know, you just said, I can't bring them over unless you're going to respect their boundaries. This is a statement of power, and you can own this power as a mom, dad, parent, carer, because you are a leader in the family. And I don't know, should we just give people, like, here's your permission.
Yes.
Here's your permission
to
say no to other people on behalf of your children. You have permission from both of us. Brilliant. Thank you so much, Sarah.
All right. So good to talk to you, Laura. Talk to you soon.
You too. Bye.
Bye.